Okay, in today's English lesson, we're going to write the description of one character and one character only. But we're going to go into some really extreme detail. I know we've been doing this a lot this year, but this time I want you to see if you can write the best description, the best piece of descriptive writing you've ever written. I always persuade you to go on and on and on and to go into finer details when you're doing your descriptive writing. But today we're going to take it to a new extreme. I'm going to show you some examples of some descriptions of Alba. They all start the same and they end the same. They all start with Alba entered the room. And they all end with, "Would you like some tea?" she asked. There's obviously no descriptions whatsoever of Alba here. So let's go through some different levels. Let's go through some different kind of ideas of how to describe Alba. Okay, this is like the beginner level, the year one level. Alba entered the room. She had ginger hair and was short. "Would you like some tea?" she asked. So that's your absolute basic year one style description. You're just telling me a little tiny bit, two things about Alba. So in your head now, you know two new things about Alba. She has ginger hair and she's quite short. That's all we know. Okay, that's your year one level. Okay, so now we're into the amateur level, or year two. And what we're going to do here is just going to add some adjectives. Alba entered the room. She had long ginger hair and was quite short. Okay, so we are taking our descriptions a little bit further now. Okay, so the key stage one, master I used to teach. When I used to teach younger children, this is what we would do to get the really clever year ones and twos to show off. We get them to use extended noun phrases. So that is usually two adjectives for every noun. Alba entered the room. She had long golden ginger hair and was quite noticeably short. "Would you like some tea?" she asked. Okay, so our description's already getting longer. Let's keep going. Key stage two, adding more detail. Okay, so already you can see there's a bit of a jump here. Alba entered the room. She had long golden ginger hair and had a yellow and white jumper. Her eyes were green and her face was covered in freckles. She was quite short. "Would you like some tea?" she asked. Okay, so all we've done here is you've added a little bit more detail. We're talking about her eyes, the freckles on her face, and what colour jumper she was wearing. Okay, so now you've got a little bit more idea of what Alba looks like. You know that she's got a white and yellow jumper on. You know that she's got green eyes, and you know that her face is covered in freckles. So hopefully now you've got a better view. Okay, so this is the Key Stage 2 pros. This is the real pro level of Key Stage 2. So like we've been doing a lot already in year 6, we've been adding some figurative language. So can you spot, in this description, can you spot there's a metaphor, there's a simile, there's personification, and there's alliteration. Alba entered the room. She had long golden ginger hair like fire and had a yellow and white jumper that held her tight. Her eyes were a field of green and her face was covered in fabulous freckles. There's a mistake there. She quite short. She was quite short. "Would you like some tea?" she asked. Okay, so this is the Key Stage 2 pro now. Already, look, it's gone from that to this. Did you spot the metaphor? Saying something is something. Her eyes were a field of green. It's a metaphor. How about the simile? Her hair, ginger hair, like fire. Really brings that to life, doesn't it? Personification, I like this one. Yellow and white jumper that held her tight. That's what people do. People hold you tight. But in this case, I've added it to the jumper. The jumper was holding her tight. And the alliteration near the end, fabulous freckles. On golden ginger as well. She had long golden ginger hair. That's another example of alliteration. All right, can we take it any further? I think this is where we are now, but let's keep going. Boom. Key Stage 2 pro level, adding some other senses into the mix. When I mean senses, I mean sight, not just sight, sorry, but smell and sound and taste if it was relevant. Alba entered the room. She had long golden ginger hair like fire and had a yellow and white jumper that held her tight. Her eyes were a field of green and her face was covered in fabulous freckles. She smelt like freshly baked bread and had a thick Yorkshire accent. She quite short. I should change that really, shouldn't I? I'll tell you what, when you see the real version of this, that typo will have gone. So there we go. I've added a sentence in there which is adding sound and smell. She smelt like freshly baked bread and had a thick Yorkshire accent. Would you like some tea? She asked. Can we go further? Oh, of course we can. Key stage 2, pro level 3. Adding more details. Okay, so you can see here there's a bit of a chunk now. I'm now going over into 2 paragraphs. And all I'm doing now is I'm adding more details. A little bit more information about Alba. Alba entered the room. She had long, golden ginger hair like fire and a yellow and white jumper that held her tight. Her eyes were a field of green and her face was covered in fabulous freckles. Although she was quite short, she was strong and never shied away from an argument. That's a little bit more information about Alba there. Tom, who's a new person I've introduced to the story for the sake of describing Alba, Tom had known Alba for many years now, and he believed that she hadn't changed at all in all of that time. She smelt like freshly baked bread and had a thick Yorkshire accent. Would you like some tea? She asked. So I'm using the other character in the story here, Tom, to help me describe Alba in a bit more detail. Can we go further? Of course we can go further. And this is what we've been talking about recently, just before Christmas. If we change the order of things, sometimes it makes descriptions, especially of people, a little bit more interesting. So instead of describing the appearance first, we're going to switch it around. First of all, we're going to talk about memories and feelings, and then we're going to talk about the other senses, and then finally we're going to talk about the appearance. So this is the same writing. I've just changed the order and added a couple of extra little bits. Alba entered the room. Tom had known Alba for many years now, and he believed that she hadn't changed at all in this time. She still reminded him of the little girl he played with at school all those years ago. She smelt like freshly baked bread and had a thick, loud Yorkshire accent that she'd picked up from spending time in her uncle's farm near Leeds when she was growing up. Okay, so I haven't mentioned at all in that first paragraph. I haven't mentioned at all what Alba looked like. Instead, I've talked more about what she is, who she is, what she's like as a person, how Tom knows her, what she smells like, what memories Tom has of her, and what she sounds like. And I haven't mentioned anything about her appearance. I put that instead at the bottom. She had long golden ginger hair like fire and had a yellow and white jumper that held her tight. Her eyes were a field of green and her face was covered in fabulous freckles. Although she was quite short, she was strong and never shied away from an argument. Would you like some tea? She asked. Can we go further? Surely that's enough now. I reckon this is the Key Stage 2 mastery level, but we can show off now. I know you, Eagles. Let's go further. I've just put a little note in here. This level of detail is great for main characters. Obviously, you wouldn't go into this much detail for every person. If you were writing a story and every time you came across a new person, you were writing 2 pages of description, the story would never end. So, these levels of descriptions, I think you should just keep for your main characters. If you only have 2 people in the story, then that's great. You can describe both of those in as much detail as you like. But if you have lots of people in your story, obviously this is reserved for your main characters. Okay, here we go. Can we go further? You bet. Time to show off Year 6. How far can you take one single description? Boom. World class. I've just gone mad here. I've just kept on going and going and going. In fact, I had to stop. I could have gone further. But I thought, no, that's ridiculous. I'm just describing one person here. But I could have gone further. Anyway, this is obviously long and huge. I want you to aim for this, but don't expect to be able to do this straight away. This sort of stuff takes practice, okay? Alba entered the room. Tom, who had known Alba for many years now, and he believed that she hadn't changed at all in all of that time, could always tell if she was happy or sad. She still reminded him of the little girl he played with at school all those years ago. They'd played a made-up game together, a bit like tennis, but using one of their hands and using only their hands, and a small rubber ball. They laughed so hard sometimes that they'd had to sit down. He remembered how she'd punched him on his arm whenever she lost. So strong, despite never being that big. She always smelt like she had been baking bread, despite, to his knowledge, she had no idea how to bake. A pleasant smell all the same. That should say had. I'll edit that in the final one. She had developed a thick, loud Yorkshire accent from spending time in her uncle's farm near Leeds, where she was forced to spend all summer there as a teenager. She claimed to hate it, but the stories she told about the long sunny afternoons riding horses and eating fresh produce in idyllic Yorkshire countryside didn't sound bad at all. She had long golden hair like fire that wound its way like vine leaves down her back and over her shoulders. It almost looked as if it might have a mind of its own. The kind of hair that had no use for a brush. Not that any brush could have got through the madness. She was wearing a yellow and white jumper that held her tight. It was a jumper she'd had for years and never really suited her. It looked handmade, and white and yellow stripes had become dull. The numerous times it had been washed over the years also clearly shrunk it a good few sizes. Her eyes were a field of green, and her face was covered in fabulous freckles. She had the kind of eyes that you could spot in a crowd. They certainly attracted a lot of attention. Not that she ever noticed, of course. Tom noticed she was only wearing one sock and wondered why. Had she only taken one sock off when she got in? Or had she only put one on and was about to go out? Being Alba, the answer was probably not quite that simple, and the truth could have been that she was trying out a new form of indoor fashion. Give it a few years, and every young person up and down the country would be wearing only one sock while indoors. Although she was quite short, she was strong and never shied away from a fight. She wasn't particularly quick when she moved either, yet still most people stayed out of her way when she was angry. The present, usual calm self, however, filled people's souls with comfort and safety, like the warm embrace of a winter duvet. Would you like some tea? She asked. Okay, so first of all, there's some mistakes in there, obviously, like everyone makes, so I'm going to go back and edit those now. That's a lesson there. Make sure you go back and read your own work. Make sure there's no typos like I've made. Secondly, I hope a lot of you are thinking, actually, that's not that ridiculous. This whole paragraph here about only having one sock on and trying to start a fashion, that was just to give a bit of personality to Alba. I felt like I described how she looked and stuff like that, but I wanted to give her a bit more personality, so I added this paragraph here about Tom assuming that she was trying to start off some fashion. It gives us a bit more clue about what she's like as a person. So, we've gone from Alba entered the room. She had ginger hair and was short. Would you like some tea? She asked. And it got longer and longer and longer until we had this massive, that's about a page worth of writing. That's what I want you to aim for. Be brave, have a go. Don't be afraid to write something which you think's silly, because it might be brilliant. Okay, so here it is. Your turn. Describe someone in incredible length, detail and quality. Use the ideas from the previous descriptions to see how far you can go. Make the best piece of descriptive writing you have ever done. I think I said that at the beginning. Why not? Go for it, Year 6. We'll edit these tomorrow and change them. Write in a third person. You're going to be writing about someone called Simon. Write in the third person. There's another typo there. Start by describing another character's relations to Simon. That can be anyone you like. So anyone you like. So in my story, I had somebody, who was it? It was Tom. I had Tom, and in the third person, Tom was describing how he had memories of growing up with Alba. So your other person can be anyone you like. Can be you, can be a made-up name. How do they know him? For how long? How about some interesting memories? What emotions is Simon feeling at the moment? What do they remind the other character of? What does Simon sound like when he speaks? Does he have an accent? Is he loud, quiet? Is there anything interesting about the way he speaks? Does the way he speaks remind you of anything? Now tell me what he's looked like. So remember, then once you've done all of that, now tell me what he looks like and what he is wearing. Add loads of tiny, tiny details. Remember the thing about the sock, or maybe it's just a particularly weird button on his shirt or something. Don't forget to add figurative language and loads of detail. I want you to write one entire page. If you think you can write more, then go for it. Okay.